Thrilled to be joined here today with Billy Jensen,
Hi.
author of Chase Darkness with me.
How you doing?
Billy, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We're super psyched to talk with you. We're here live at 30 Rock, New York City.
We are live at 30 Rock.
Having a great time. I know you're in the middle of a book tour right now.
I am, yes.
But so for all the more reason, we appreciate you taking the time out here to talk with us.
Yes.
So, Chase Darkness with me.
Yes.
The book of the moment that we're talking about.
Yes.
It charts your path from being a true crime writer to solving murders, solving cold cases.
Correct.
But your history and your job as a true crime writer traces back to the 1990s.
Why are you going to make me feel old? Jeez. Back to the night. We're going to go back to the 1990s. Do you remember that?
All the way back to
Okay,
the 1990s.
so Limp Bizkit had just come out.
Yep. Nirvana was breaking on the radio. And you were writing true crime pieces, field pieces for the New York Post, New York Times, places here in the city.
Yeah.
What was life like for you there, time at that time?
Well, that was, I would do that on the weekends.
Okay.
So I was stringing for, it was actually out on Long Island, so I was stringing for the Times, and then I only did one piece for the Post. And then when I would do, during the week, I was a editor of a newspaper called the Long Island Voice, which is like the Village Voice, but on Long Island. And I was just scrapping. I had a kid, I had another kid on the way, and I was just trying to make money anywhere that I could.
Yeah.
And it was different then. It was before. I think I had a pager.
Yeah.
I had to call in. When you call in when you're stringing for the Times, you'd call in to rewrite. So you'd go and you get the quotes from people, and then you'd call in to rewrite, and then somebody else would write it. So it would look like the same person was out on the North Fork, and then in Jersey, and then in Connecticut, and everything like that. That's what the metro section was like. So you'd call it up on a payphone. It was just like, I sort of caught that very tail end, like that last year of that was the way it was before I eventually got a cell phone, and now it controls my life.
And at what point did you know that you not only wanted to just write about true crime, but actually get involved and start helping to solve murder?
Yeah, it really was the. I didn't like doing. I got put out on an assignment for the New York Post, and just the way that they were dealing with the victims, I just didn't like it, and it was there was no mystery to it, and I just felt like it wasn't adding anything to my soul or the conversation. So I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. So I just want to, if I'm going to do this, I want to just do unsolved. Now the problem with that is that you're writing stories with no endings.
Yeah.
No matter how good of a writer that you are, if the story has no ending, it's not complete. So that was the cross that I was bearing for 17 years. And then you just kind of get fed up. I mean, I still do write occasionally and there's stories in the book that don't have endings, but it was good to be able to get endings for a few of them.
Yeah. Was there a sense of being unable to let go of some of those?
Well, yeah, you can't let go of any of them. Sure. Even tonight, I've got a book signing tonight at Barnes and Noble, and there's a story in the book about this woman who had gone missing she was from New York. She went missing in Humboldt County around there in the late 90s, early 90s, excuse me. There's a picture that I ran with the article of her holding her little niece, and I talk about it in the book. And then 17 years later, that little niece contacted me about 2 years ago, and it's just like, I'm just the kid in the picture, And her mother had passed, but she's sort of taking over the mantle of that case and seeing if we could ever figure out what happened to Jade. So, and she'll be there tonight, actually. So it doesn't stop. This is not something for the faint of heart. This is not something sort of like a little I'll just do this and then stop. No, you're in it for the long haul.
Yeah. And so you're known for this personal touch, this personal involvement with the individuals that you're working with, but also crowdsourcing and leveraging social media to crack cases, to track down people who are missing, to solve murders in some instances.
Yeah.
For those who are unfamiliar, could you give just a quick rundown? I mean, it's covered extensively and in fascinating detail in the book.
Thank you.
But for those who aren't necessarily aware.
So what you want to do is, say somebody, say you have a liquor store in your town, right? Then somebody shoots somebody outside the liquor store. They don't know who it is. They have a little bit of piece of information, maybe the back of his head video or something. And after 2 months, police can't figure it out. They don't know who it is. So I'll go in, I'll talk to the family, I'll talk to the police, and I'll say, listen, I got this idea. I don't want any money for it. I'll spend my own money on it. I'm not wanting a reward. The reward goes to the tipster. Here's what we're going to do. Set up a Facebook page. We're going to do a targeted ad buy. Just targeting people that I think might recognize this person. I don't care about all across the country. I don't care about all about the state. I just care about maybe a 1 mile radius or a 5 mile radius or whatever around that store of somebody who might recognize that guy. Or any other information that I have and where I would put it. And the way I describe it to detectives is that it's sort of like if you're knocking on the door of every house that has a Facebook account or an Instagram account or Twitter and asking them, do you know who this person is? You know, because they just don't have the resources to do that. That's how it works.
And another element in the book, touching on what you're saying there, is there's this discussion of old school investigative techniques. So on the ground, the shoes, the rubber hitting the road kind of thing, and then the social media tech-driven stuff that you're leveraging and talking about right now. What I liked about the book, among many other things, is that you present as it's not an either-or scenario. It's not an either-or choice. Both happen at the same time.
Yeah.
So do you see that as, how do you see those two modes of investigative technique working together?
Yeah, I mean, you have to do, it's the same thing, you know, we've done it as well. You know, you do it as a journalist.
Yeah.
You know, you have to pick up the phone. You gotta go outside and talk and knock on doors. You still have to do that. You have to do it as a journalist. You have to do it as a detective. The thing about social media, people are a little bit not as guarded. On the phone.
Okay.
I mean, especially these days, nobody likes to talk on the phone at all. It's crazy. But they're not as guarded, and they might be potentially a little bit more truthful. And but you still have to. You know, there's still a lot to be said, obviously, for being out there and going around and going to the scene and seeing what was out there and seeing, you know, especially with one of the cases that I went, you just like, whenever you go to a scene, you learn so much new things about it. You know, I was just on I have a podcast called The First Degree, which is about, we tell a story about victims' family, you know, through a victim's family's eyes, pretty much, or a friend of the victim. So we actually had Kim Goldman on, and it drops tomorrow. And I had been to where she was murdered with Ron Goldman, where Nicole Brown was murdered with Ron Goldman, but I'd never been like behind it, which is where we think the killer, who we know who the killer is, parked. And I'd never been there, and it was interesting so I'd seen the front, but I'd never seen the back, and you get a whole different perspective of what it was like going there at night, going from there to Rockingham, and how actually quick it is, even though LA traffic is awful. I did the drive, and it was actually very quick, and you're doing side streets, and you're sort of seeing, you know, you don't get that obviously from just, you know, being on your computer.
Sure. And
there's going to be certain places when, you know, one of the things that I was struck by is that how many cameras are in that alleyway now, because it was an alleyway, it was where he parked. And you look around and it's like, wow, if this was back then, it would have been game over, because you had cameras here, 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 and here, but it just wasn't like that back then. So, yeah.
And surprising limitations too with technology. There's a moment in the book where you're able to source clip of a particular individual on a case that you're looking into, and you have an image of that person, but then you need to manually go down to Cook County and look through the mugshot books, flip through each
actually,
page.
I didn't manually go down there.
Okay.
They actually had those.
Okay.
I would have had to do that, but Cook County actually lets them out, and then they put them online. Okay. And then there's also other organizations that take that information and then they try to make money on it, you know. So, which is, it's good for me, but I don't agree with it, just because it's very much of a, you know, you're guilty in the court of public opinion before you've had your day in court, because your mugshot's up there forever. So, but yeah, no, with that case I was able to do that. But yeah, there's a lot of other cases where you can't, you know, because they just don't do that. I was just lucky that you know, Cook County did that. So.
Throughout the book, you offer glimpses into your relationship with Michelle McNamara, from the True Crime Web show that you once hosted together, to your collaborative investigative work. I'm curious, what was life like working with her? What were your experiences working with her? And also, what challenges did you face in helping finish her book alongside Paul Haynes and Patton Oswalt after her passing?
You know, we only worked together on like 4 episodes, so it was, I mean, it was great working with her. We both had a passion for unsolved crimes, and those are the ones that we were focusing on. And when she passed, it was twofold. One, it was she didn't write the book linearly. She was writing it sort of in chunks or chapters. So how to structure that, and then from there, it was a matter of what do we do for the things that she hadn't gotten to yet.
Yeah.
And we decided we're not going to try to write like her. There's going to be certain cases, because there's a lot of cases in that story that we're not going to cover. But I made the decision with the guys that, all right, this is what we should do. We should have a third section where we're just talking about what she thought was going to be able to solve it. And she felt that there were two things. It was geographic profiling and familial DNA, and that's the two things that we focused on.
And on the note of familial DNA, major breakthrough obviously in that case, and also in another case that you cover in the book, the Bear Brook murders at Allentown's 4. What are your thoughts on the future of familial DNA as an investigative technique? Do you see that as an essential, ever increasingly essential part?
Yeah, absolutely. I think every big police department should have a forensic genealogist on staff. It's just going to take we're going to see that, because right now they're sort of reaching out in different places and kind of it's very, very new, but you're going to see that as part of the curriculum. You're going to see that as part of the staffing, and it's something that needs to be taken incredibly seriously, especially as more and more people upload their DNA into these places. Even getting a third cousin. You have a lot of third cousins. You don't know how many third cousins you have.
Don't know what they're up to.
You have no idea what they're up to. So, the Golden State Killer was interesting just because you knew how pretty much how old he was.
Yeah.
So it's they were able to narrow it down a little bit faster than if it was a case that happened now and you had no idea. The perpetrator could be 15 to 50 or something. You knew he was over this this age. But you also didn't know if he was alive or dead. They certainly were surprised that this guy was actually alive. So.
Yeah. And you covered the Bear Brook murders and the Allentown's 4 case in this book, and that's something that is of great importance to you and something you've dedicated and continuing to dedicate a lot of time to. I'm curious, to talk about what drew you to that case, and also where you are in your investigation in it now. I mean, there's a major breakthrough that just happened this summer as far as identifying 3 out of the 4 victims.
Yeah, where I'm at is, what drew me to the case was that you have a woman and 3 children found in barrels in 1985 to 2000. Seemingly, no one's looking for them. We don't know who they are. And they were all murdered with blunt force trauma to the back of the head. You just never see that. I can't think of a case where you see an almost complete family unit like that are not identified in America. Yeah. And that's what drew me to the case. And also that there was a good amount of citizen detective work being done online about it. So when I was talking to some of those citizen detectives, and then talking with the DA's office, I was just like, all right, I had been following it for a while, and then when I was on a TV show called Crime Like Jail, I was like, well, let me go out there and see, really just walk the ground, see what's going on, see how far the one barrel was from the other one, because remember the barrels were found 15 years apart. Yeah. It's obvious that they were both there at the same time. Yeah. How did they miss it? That kind of thing. So I think it's a matter of why I keep going now is because this guy was the worst serial killer ever in terms of evilness. And the reason why why I say that is because, and I hate ranking them, but when people always ask me who was the worst, and I keep going back to Rasmussen, because this is what he would do. He would sidle up to a woman with a child or children. He would begin a relationship with them, pull them away from their family, begin molesting the child, eventually kill the mother, take the child and use the child as a lure to find the next family. Yeah. And then, when that child potentially was old enough to talk or whatever, kill that child and then start that all over again. And we don't know, we know he did it a couple times, we don't know how many times he did that. Yeah. And I can't think of anything more evil than that.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And there's that sense too of going to the scene and having that sort of sensory experience, things that you can't.
You've got to do it, and that's how the original barrels were found. Not the original barrels, but the barrels were found. Trooper Cody got the case in 2000, and he was like, I'm going to go check out the scene just to see what it's like. And he's just looking around, and he kicks a barrel, and it sounds like it's full. Then he opens it up, and then the mystery multiplied.
Yeah. Okay. So we are clearly in the midst of a true crime wave. The popularity, the interest in the genre is greater than it's been in some time. To your point of citizen sleuthing and citizens detectives, what ways can we harness that energy, that interest, that excitement into a positive force, into a constructive force in helping the victim's family?
Yeah, I think it's a matter of going back to the cases that nobody's working on.
Okay.
Yeah, and you know, finding if everybody sort of adopted their own case, and you know, with 220,000 unsolved murders since 1980, there's not. It's not like there's people working on those, each one of them every day, and then you know, the cases might not be the, you know, we have a lot of people working right now on like doing digging on certain cases that everybody's working on. You know, we need to split it up and find something that speaks to you in your area, in your neck of the woods, and then just you know, start collecting stuff on it. I mean, a lot of them, I would never say that anything is unsolvable, but you know, a lot of them are difficult. A lot of them are gun crimes. You know, not everything is going to have DNA attached to it, unfortunately. So, but if you have a gun, you got ballistics, and you know, just also keeping the police accountable too.
Yeah.
You know, in particular things like, you know, the rape kits. So we got the rape kits, and then even when a place says, oh, you know what, we cleared our backlog. Well, what does that mean? Did you start running familial DNA searches for all of it? Probably not. You know, so it's like you can go. What's that step further? And that's where the money needs to come in for these, you know, genealogists and things, and for more of the science involved with it, because the answers are right there. The answers are in those, you know, those kits and in the databases. They just need to be put together.
The book concludes with tips, rules, ideas for the reader to get involved at the same level that you found yourself doing, to become a citizen sleuth.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, individuals watching right now, if there is, say, one tip or one idea that you can pass on to them to where they can begin on their own journey as a citizen sleuth, what would that be?
I think the one tip is remember, is a warning, and it's a warning that this is somebody's life, and it's not a matter of this isn't really going to be a hobby. This isn't something that you're going to do for 6 months and then leave. If you take on a case and start working with a family, you're in it for the long haul, and it's going to be, you know, like that little girl who grew up and contacted me over Facebook and said I was that little girl in that picture. You're going to talk to those people for a long time, and you better be ready for that. This is not something for, you know, for the faint of heart. This is not something for like, oh, I'll do this and then move with that. I mean, you see that with the web. The web is filled with pages for missing persons and things that are just not active anymore, you know. And you don't necessarily need to keep them active, but you just need to always be watching to see if anybody's writing in, giving information about them, anything along those lines. Yeah.
It's a great book. I enjoyed it very much.
Thank you.
It's something that I think every true crime reader, every one of our readers on the lineup would greatly enjoy. So I highly encourage you, check it out. Chase Darkness with me. Billy, I know you're on tour right now. What would you like to plug? I know you've got dates, but
I've got dates. All right. So tomorrow I've got tonight I've got Union Square in New York City at 7. Then tomorrow I've got Atlanta, but I think Atlanta's sold out. Then the next day I've got Dallas. Then the next day after that I got Houston, and then I have Scottsdale. And then there's also, then I get like 2 days of break. Not really a break. I mean, it's just actually it's 1 day break, and then I fly back here again. But then it's a matter of I think I'm going to hit up Seattle and San Francisco at some point, and Michigan too. Michigan was very upset that their Chase Darkness wasn't coming over there, so we're trying to figure out Michigan now.
Great. Sounds good. Well, as a Michigander, I appreciate that. I hope you visit our many literary cities. They are waiting for you, I'm sure. Billy Jensen, Chase Darkness with me. Thank you again for joining us, Billy. Really
Thanks for having me.
All right, take care, everybody.